am attorney Marie-Chris Bathan-Lasco. This is my virtual classroom. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this channel, I shall aim to simplify the law. I will discuss concepts and principles of law in under 10 minutes. Hello everyone, welcome to MBL Classroom. So for this video, I want us to talk about how to fill in vacancies. If there are such vacancies in the board of directors or the board of trustees. Now, where do you see how you fill in the vacancies? Where do you see that in the revised corporation code? You see that under section 28 of your revised corporation code. Yes, it's quite a long provision, so let's talk about this and let's simplify that particular provision of your revised corporation code. So first, let's talk about what causes a vacancy in the board. Your vacancy may be due to expiration of a term of a director or trustee, or it may be caused by removal of a director or trustee. Vacancies may also be caused by death of a director or a trustee, or by resignation of a director or a trustee. Another would be a vacancy caused by a director selling all his shares in the corporation, because as such, he automatically ceases to be a director. Another reason for when there is a vacancy is when the corporation decides to increase the number of directors or trustees. And so there is now a vacancy for the increased number of directors or trustees. So these are the reasons or causes of vacancies in the board, either board of directors or board of trustees. So why is it important to know the cause of the vacancy? It's important to know the cause of the vacancy because then it will determine how you are going to fill in the vacancy. And that is what Section 28 is actually about. So let's talk about the different causes of the vacancy and how the vacancy may be filled if such is the cause. If the vacancy is caused by death or resignation of a director or trustee, how do we fill in the vacancy? If those are the causes of the vacancy, death of a director or resignation, there are two ways of filling in that vacancy. It could either be filled by the remaining members of the board, or it could be filled by the stockholders. Now, how do we know when it can be filled by the remaining board of directors or trustees, or if it should be filled by the stockholders or the members? You have to look into whether the remaining board of directors or board of trustees would still constitute a quorum. What do we mean by this? If you have watched the other videos where I discussed what a quorum is actually 1/2 plus 1 of all, or based on all the members of the board of directors. So for example, if there are 10 directors in the board, then your quorum is 1/2 plus 1. That makes it 6 members. Now, supposing there is the death of 2 directors out of the 10. The remaining directors would then be only 8. Do they still constitute a quorum? The answer is yes, because clearly 8 is more than 6, which is the quorum of 10 directors. Your Section 28 tells you that if the remaining board still constitutes a quorum, then they can fill in the vacancy. In our example, there are 2 vacancies due to death. So your remaining board can actually fill in the vacancy. Now, how will the remaining board fill in the vacancy? Just like any other approval of a corporate act, it has to be at least majority of the remaining board who will fill in the vacancy. If, however, the remaining board does not constitute a quorum, for example, still 10 directors, but 5 directors died. Perhaps they went on a trip and the airplane crashed and all 5 of the directors died, leaving only 5 directors of the board. Clearly, 5 is less than 6, which is the quorum. How then do we fill that vacancy? We have to fill it by election, and the election must be done by your stockholders or members if it would be your non-stock corporation. Of course, election will be done in the manner that I have already discussed in another video. I will put the link up here so you may be reminded of how an election is done. What if the vacancy is caused by term expiration? Of course, it will have to be voted on by the stockholders or members to fill in the vacancy. Again, we follow the manner and the method of election that I have already discussed in another video. Again, the link I will place up there. Of course, if it is term expiration, then the election must be held not later than the day of expiration of the term. Now, how about if the vacancy is caused by removal of a director or a trustee? If it is due to removal of a director or trustee, it must be filled by the stockholders or members. Why? Because your stockholders or your members are the only ones who have the power to remove directors or trustees. And so they must also be the one who can fill in such vacancy due to removal of directors or trustees. The election may be held in that same meeting where there is an election for removal of such director or trustee. Now, how about if the vacancy is caused by the increase of directors or trustees? This also will have to be filled in by an election during a regular meeting or a special meeting called for that purpose. Again, who can fill such vacancy? It is your stockholders or members. Now, supposing that a director or a trustee has already been voted on to replace the director who was removed or the director who died or the director who resigned. The replacement is called the replacement director or trustee. Now, what is his term of office? For how long will he become a director or a trustee in the corporation? Your Section 28 says that he will only hold office or will become a director or trustee only for the remaining term of the director whom he has replaced. Again, the director who has been removed, the director who has died, or the director who has resigned. Now, how about if there exists a vacancy and then it leaves the remaining directors not constituting a quorum? We said that that must be filled by the stockholders or members in an election. But supposing there is an urgent matter that must be acted on by the board, but because they do not constitute a quorum, they could not act on such matter. Now, what if not acting on such matter will cause great damage or loss to the corporation? What can the corporation do so that this loss may be avoided? Again, there is a vacancy and it caused the remaining directors not to constitute a quorum. For example, there are 10 directors and 5 directors die, leaving only 5, not constituting a quorum anymore. Again, as I've mentioned, there is an urgent matter that must be acted upon, because if they do not act on it, it will cause great loss or damage to the corporation. But calling for an election by your stockholders or your members will take time. Is there a remedy on the part of the corporation where they could still act on that particular matter to avoid loss or damage to the corporation? The answer is yes, there is a remedy, and it is provided for under Section 28 of your revised corporation code. Let me read that particular paragraph in that provision. It says, however, when the vacancy prevents the remaining directors from constituting a quorum, an emergency action is required to prevent grave, substantial, and irreparable loss or damage to the corporation. The vacancy may be temporarily filled from among the officers of the corporation by unanimous vote of the remaining directors or trustees. The action by the designated director or trustee shall be limited to the emergency action necessary, and the term shall cease within a reasonable time from the termination of the emergency or upon election of the replacement director or trustee, whichever comes earlier. The corporation must notify the Commission within 3 days from the creation of the emergency board, stating therein the reason for its creation. That particular paragraph in Section 28 tells you that the remaining board, even though not constituting a quorum, can actually make or fill the vacancy. In our example, 5 out of 10 directors have died, leaving 5. The 5 can actually fill in the vacancy, but the law requires that there must be a unanimous vote, meaning all 5 must vote for the other 5 who will fill in. And we call them the emergency board. Of course, your Section 28 also tells you that the term of the emergency board will expire when the emergency action has already been acted on, or there is already the election by your stockholders or members, whichever will come earlier. So I hope you know now how vacancies in the board of directors or trustees are to be filled in. Again, very important, you have to determine first what is the cause of the vacancy before you can determine how the vacancy will be filled. I hope you have learned again another thing or two in this video, and I will see you in the next. So if you find this video helpful, please click like, subscribe, and that notification bell so that you will be notified of new video uploads. Thank you for watching. See you next time in MBL Classroom.